Great. So my name is Patrick. I'm a PhD student with the Ultramicroscopy group based in Trinity College Dublin. And today I'll be talking to you about a user-adjustable pole piece as a strategy for improving the sustainability of TEM infrastructure. So a quick slide about where I'm based. So this is the Advanced Microscopy Lab in Dublin, in its city centre. And moving swiftly on, I probably don't need to explain to you guys as an audience, but currently electron microscopy is used in pretty much every area of advanced research at some point, whether that's ultra high resolution work, primarily used by the physical sciences, all the way to more analytical work, mainly used in biological sciences, and of course everything in between and every mix between that. And as a result, the microscope vendors have a range of different microscopes available to target these different scenarios. However, the components in these different microscopes are often largely identical, with the main difference usually being this pole piece highlighted in yellow here, mainly the gap of this pole piece. So you have this trade-off between a small gap, which is more useful for this ultra high resolution work, or a larger gap, which gives you more flexibility for tilting your sample, EDX collection, or specialist holders. Or of course there's some middle ground options available as well, but you always have this inherent trade-off as a result. So as a quick aside, a brief history of multifocal lenses. In the late 13th century, we first came up with glasses, single vision glasses, and then about 500 years later moved on to bifocal glasses. In this interim, someone discovered a microscope. And then again, about 300 years later, moved towards a multi-objective microscope with these various different lenses on a carousel that could be swapped around. And in each case, there's added flexibility and functionality to the devices by adding this interchangeable or somehow multifocal lens. So the same for cameras as well. It took us about 100 years to change between a single lens camera and an interchangeable lens one. And of course, just before this interchangeable lens camera, there was, of course, the first TEM, of course, with just single objective lens. So hopefully that means in the near future we might get a multi-lens TEM. So with that in mind, I'd like to present the user-adjustable pole piece, which would offer the user 5 selectable but pre-specified pole gaps that currently span the range of what's currently available on the market and exceeds it as well. So you can see the gaps available here down at the bottom in millimeters, and this would offer better flexibility in the microscope, so you could perform multiple different microscopy tasks in the same instrument, either high resolution or this more flexible analytical approach. Here we have a render of the pole piece changing, adjusting between different settings. This would maintain microscope vacuum throughout, which results in minimal downtime. We hope that you'd be able to do more than one imaging mode in the same day. And of course, this would reduce the need for redundant duplicate purchases, which has, of course, a lot of ancillary benefits, such as reducing maintenance contracts, reducing the infrastructure needed, electricity requirements, even reduced number of rooms, etc. So COMSOL has been hugely helpful for us in modeling the performance of the lens. You can see here we've constructed an objective lens. These gray coils are the excitation coils. And then you have the rest of the yoke and the magnetic flux flowing through it, and here in the center the pole piece itself. In an ideal world, you'd have a perfect lens that obeys the thin lens approximation, and you would just have a delta function here in the center. But of course, sadly, we don't quite have that. But you can see that for small gaps, it does resemble this thin lens approximation of a delta function, and as your gap widens, this becomes a less and less good approximation to make. So as your gap widens, you get worse aberrations and reduced performance as a result. So we can use this computational approach to rapidly and inexpensively optimize the many parameters that we have available to us, whether this be what alloys we use, the dimensions of the pole faces, or as we have plotted here, the current at which the poles would saturate, and we no longer get any additional performance for throwing more current through the coils. And so we're looking at these knee points here, where the flux stops increasing, but the full width half maximum does start increasing. So this avoids the need for expensive manufacturing and testing by doing it this computationally. We're currently machining our first prototype. You can see here it's on a lathe, so that's all very exciting. Because of the very high tolerances required and very high precision, everything is then verified via CMM. And of course, it's all well and good having this new lens, which is designed to be currently integratable with the current designs. But of course, that all needs to be adapted. So we're working on systems integration for working with the rest of the microscope and systems for controlling the adjustment of it and all that. So thank you very much for listening. I'd like to thank the rest of my group and my supervisor, Dr. Lewis Jones. We're currently looking for about a postdoc to start in February and a fully funded PhD spot starting next September. For more details about this specific project, we've just launched our website, turbotem.com. And then, of course, here are some content details for the group itself and our Twitter, of course. And I'd also like to thank my sponsors. Thank you very much.